We know you're looking for a truck. And of course, you're looking for a great deal. We've got the trucks and we've got the deals. Get a brand new 2023 Ford F-150 STX 4x4, just $475 per month. And right now, you can get $1,000 in free Ford accessories. And you can only find these at Jim Bass Ford, Houston Hart at Arden Road, or 24/7 at jimbassford.com.
Well, welcome back, San Angelo. This is the live daily news special report on our housing and our property appraisals from the appraisal district. And as Yantis and I before promised you, we have the magnificent Chef Tim Condon on right here. Here in the hot seat, Tim. Now tell me, Tim, you've been kind of a, I guess you've been the rabble rouser. You've been out there. You've been out there on social media with your videos. You've been throwing around a lot of accusations and stuff. Let's stop there for a second before we get into that. What is driving you? I mean, what is, you obviously own the Angry Cactus downtown bar. You own the Lone Star Cheeseburger. Mm-hmm. You might have other business interests in town. You might have other properties in town. What is driving your activism?
Yeah, well, great question, Joe. Biggest thing for me, truly, is we're at a situation now where our government's just getting too large for their own britches. And you got to pay for those things. You got to pay for every decision that is made at city council, in the commissioner's office, at the county, even at the state level. We're all responsible for those taxes. And what really gets me going is seeing the lack of regard for every decision being made and how it's going to affect people like us, business owners, property owners, residents of Tom Green County. How is that going to affect our bottom line, right? And what we see is this absolute reckless regard for just creating new rules, creating new laws, creating new ordinances that all have to be figured out how to be paid for. And so it's not just a San Angelo problem. It's not just a Tom Green County problem. It's a statewide problem. It's obviously a national problem as well. And for me, these things affect me, but I'm also the personality that's not afraid to speak up. I see the corruption that's going on. I see some of these backdoor deals that are happening. They've happened to me. And I feel absolutely obligated to bring it to the forefront and to talk about these issues. And when I see a tax bill go from, my evaluation on my business went from $600,000 to $1.5 million. That's like a 130% increase. If I use that logic against my customers and I said, I got a $30 steak, but next week it's going to be $100, I'm going to get backlash. And I would never make that decision because I'm a business owner. But our elected officials, like our mayor, some of the people in Tom Green County, some of the commissioners and things, they're making decisions not based on the bottom line of what it's going to cost the taxpayer. They're thinking about it as this progression of our city, the progression of our county, and what business does the city have to tell property owners that they have to put sidewalks in, right? What business is it that the city tells property owners that, hey, we're going to start policing how tall the grass is? These are things that the local government shouldn't be dealing with. We have to pay people to do th's things. And it's just a collection of bad decisions made by our local officials that are affecting all of our bottom lines. And, the only way to get people riled up is to educate them and show them what's going on. And there's nothing more clear than looking at the property taxes and noticing that some of our city officials, like our city attorney, you can't find any information on their property values because they're purposely hiding behind these things. And
but
so
Tim,
there it goes.
I'm going to go back to this for a second. There's always a balance. There's a balance when you have a county government. We really have three taxing entities. We have a county government, we got a city government, and we have the school district. All of those entities have employees. All of those, and the majority, if you take the school district's budget, I would say 85% of it's probably payroll, right? So when you're talking about this, or even the county, $60 million, $65 million, majority of that is probably payroll. When you start talking about cutting that stuff, well, the county's a 500-person voting block. Lord knows how big the school district is, 10,000 people, and the city's probably the same. It's probably maybe 1,000 people per voting block. How many people vote?
Yeah, very few, right? Like I think last election was less than 5%. I don't know what the percentage was, but
I mean,
people aren't voting.
The school district believed that they could pass that school bond with the last one they put up there just by getting the teachers to get out and vote. Right? And that's what they're counting on. So it's kind of like a self-perpetuating engine when you have employees whose salaries and how much you pay them relies on the tax rate or on the appraised value of our houses. I mean, and so now you're an elected official, and I got to worry about those 500, like Lane Carter, the Tom Green County judge. He has to worry about those 500 county employees. That's a voting block, right? Mayor Brenda Gunner has to worry about the 1,000 city employees. Every school board member has to worry about those 10,000 people. Well, each one's in their own little district, but they have to worry about the school district employees inside their districts. So it becomes a problem. And then you look at the last school board or school district election. No one ran unopposed. The last last city of San Angelo election, this just happened May 23rd, I think, or a couple of days, not April 23rd, a couple of days ago. I get the date wrong. Yantis, help me out. It's May 2nd?
It was May 2nd.
May 2nd. There you go.
Or 7th, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No one ran against anyone. I mean, we had Michael LePac, bless his heart, ran against Harry Thomas. And almost, I guess he may have had a showing, but no one voted for him.
Getting involved is the one way you can really kind of cultivate kind of a correction of what our government's become. And I think grassroots approach is the number one way to do that. I think we need to take and really kind of get involved with the local government in a grassroots way, starting from city council, starting from some of these local boards, some of those city boards, getting involved. And really the thing is what is the role of our government, right? It's not to take care of us. We could take care of ourselves. It's to provide the infrastructure for a proper and civilized, civilization, right? And for me, when you're seeing 120, 130% increases on properties, we've done the wrong thing.
It's not 120%. It's 500%.
Yeah, 500%.
I mean, on some of these property appraisals we looked at, it's a 500% increase. Now the appraisal district, to be fair, said it was 16 to 35% increases across the board. But I mean, we've seen some pretty crazy valuations on things that are gone up. I mean, my house went from 400,000 to 500,000, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a 20% increase. That's pretty hefty.
Yeah.
On the other hand, this building we're in went down $50,000 in valuation. I don't know why. And that's the other thing that gets me. Yantis, have you ever seen an appraisal district publication of their new valuations be this weird and you can't really make sense of it?
Well, that's this happens. Every year the appraisal district has to go out and appraise new property, and they're under the gun from the state, and essentially the legislature and tells the comptroller that we need X amount of dollars because of the way the economy works, with the influx of people into the state of Texas is putting pressure on housing. That is why the appraisal districts, all of them in the state of Texas, are following the rule of the comptroller, who says you've got to be within 5% of the values that I set. So that comes out of Austin, and Tyler Johnson here in Tom Green County is doing his job. He's doing what he's told to do. He's got to get the values of the property up in Tom Green County to within that 5%, or the state is going to take over the appraisal district here, and it'll be a lot more unpleasant than it already seems.
Well, I think what Mr. Condon, restaurateur, provocateur, is getting at is, there has to be activism, but at the same time, Tim, when you say we got to understand exactly why our gross amount of tax is going out the door, what causes that? And there's really two things that cause that: the tax rate times your property valuation, right? And so I don't think a lot of people even understand that. That's the one thing that kind of concerns me.
Well, I think the most transparent way to look at this is when you see the numbers going up and going up at the rates that they are. It doesn't take many words to follow to realize that's a very interesting situation. And you can draw whatever conclusion you want on why or how, but when we as taxpayers have to basically go to a default position of we have to protest, our property appraisals. It almost seems like there's no due process there, right? Like, just by default, we have to defend ourselves against this allegation that our business and our properties are increasing this much in value. And there's something fundamentally wrong with that scenario. I don't think that in any way that should be the scenario that Americans live in, is to defend themselves against the government.
So what you're saying, Tim, what you're saying is citizens who own property are guilty until they prove themselves innocent. That's
exactly.
what you're saying.
Guilty of these massive increases. And the only way to justify and to get them back to where they should have been all along is we have to protest. And there's something fundamentally wrong about that. There's something fundamentally wrong about that. We have to defend ourselves against these increases in property value. And that just really sits really deep in my stomach and very badly. It doesn't make any sense. And, I think we all deserve better. And I think it's every single person that lives here in the Concho Valley should demand better from, their elected officials, demand better from the people that make these decisions at city council and at the state level and even at the school district level. I'm just one of those people that's not very happy right now.
So, Tim, if you're going to blame politicians, name them. Who's guilty of this? All of them? You can't just say all of them.
It takes it's at the city council level. It takes 7 people, right? And
it takes 4.
Well,
it takes 4 out of 3.
There's 7 people on the board,
right.
So it takes 4 decision makers to agree, right?
Right.
And so I think that's the beginning step, right? I also think that it's going to take people like me and other business owners and property owners to speak up, right? And say, hey, quit this. San Angelo is not a growing community. I think our population has only increased in the last 10 years, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people, right? I don't see a lot of commerce coming in major amounts. We're somewhat on a recession type level here locally, economy wise. And I
wouldn't say it's a recession level, but I mean the growth is slow.
It's slow, right? It's not the DFW. It's not Austin. It's not Dallas. It's not Houston. It's nothing like that. And so, I think a lot of reasons for that is part of our location, this and that. There's a lot of reasons, right? But in general, we've got to make sure that every decision made at these, at city council or at the county level or even at the school district level, they think about how much is this going to cost, right? That's the important part.
Yantis Green, you as a county commissioner, you've been through a number of budget sessions. So why don't you tell me what that's like, and are those commissioners really taking into account the individual property owners who are complaining or, I guess, buckling under the weight of these valuation increases?
Well, and yes, the short answer is yes. It's a convoluted and complex process, and that budgeting process hasn't begun yet for this year. But in the budgets that I was involved in, we wait to get the numbers from the appraisal district, which they still don't have yet. They will have in June.
And so when you mean the numbers from the appraisal district, what the appraisal district will give the county and the school district and the city is they're going to give them 2 things. They're going to give them the gross amount of money that you're going to tax, which is going to be around $9 billion.
Right.
Okay. And for the city and the county and the school district. And then the next thing they're going to give them is they're going to give them a tax rate called the no new revenue tax rate.
Well, but that doesn't come from the appraisal district.
Yeah, that's what they told me. They were going to give it to them. Who's it come from?
That is that's a formula that's based upon the amount of value, land value in the county, and it varies per taxing entity.
Right. So, but just the big picture is the no new revenue tax rate is the tax rate that if the county commissioner set the tax rate here, they will not raise 1 penny more or less than the previous year. So that's their baseline.
Yeah, and when the appraisals go up like they are this year, then the tax rate has to go down to get to that no new tax.
Yeah, the no new revenue tax rate obviously
tax
go down.
Rate.
So right now they're taxing at 50 cents. Or 46 cents or whatever it is, it'll have to go down to 38 cents. So
right.
The no new revenue tax rate will tell you, based on these new appraisals, here's where you got to set it. Now the question is, have you ever seen a county commissioner's court keep the tax rate at the no new revenue rate?
It has happened, and the rate's actually gone down. But those are different times and different years, different circumstances. But what we're looking at now is what's happened to the appraisals here, and what pressures are on that, and what's changed this year. And one of the things is every piece of property in the county has been reappraised this year. Normally, it's only 1/3 of the property in the county that's appraised at any one time. And I think you and Tyler Johnson talked about that.
We did. He said he had to reappraise all the land values. So we'll go back to Tim, our provocateur.
Oh, come on, Joe.
Tim Condon. Tim, do you have any examples of some egregious? Just give the story about your two businesses. I mean, what?
Yeah, I mean, I have a piece of property that went up. I think it was like $600,000 in value, and I was able to protest and get that down. So
this year?
Yeah, already this year. So I've already protested. I'm one of those people who I protest every year for every piece of property I've ever owned. I do it as like a default mechanism. I don't believe that my properties are going up what they say, and most of the time, 99% of the time, the county appraisers agree with me. In this case, we're still fighting one of my businesses, but they were able to come down on all the protests to the point I've got one protest left, and that's the big one, and that's the one that increased almost 130%. So, I mean, that's a huge deal for me. Would be a huge deal for anyone. And, you know, I just feel the right thing to do is just bring that up. And I think really the thing that I'm more worried about is the people that don't know these things are going on right now. You know, I was one of the first people in line at the tax appraisal district, the Tom Green County Appraisal District the other day, and there was probably 1,500 people out there.
Well, Tim, let me ask you this question. When you're protesting something, what if you don't have? I mean, I don't know what to say for my land. I mean, I'm outing myself. So, what do I say? Well, the neighbors all went up. I went up. Isn't it just fair for me to just accept it?
So luckily, like, you know, the good thing about having all the laws and all kind of the formulas online is you can just go online, read it for yourself, read exactly what the tax code is, and I printed it out here as well. And in Chapter 42, Section 26. There's a process where you can fight, and there's a process where you can look at comp properties around you. There's also an explanation on how they find the cap rate, the capitalization rate, and the income or the sales price of a property. And so you can use that formula, and you can also look at the properties around you and kind of gauge what that value should be.
So Tim, what if your value should be higher?
Then you probably shouldn't say anything. But if it's lower, I mean, if it goes up much higher,
is every one of your properties you protest they should have been lower?
Every single one went up dramatically, and I'm not talking just $50,000. I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Have you protested in the past?
Yeah, every single time I protest my property, every single year.
And every time it's you think your property should be worth less?
Not worth less. Equal to last year or slightly above. You know, I expect property taxes to increase anywhere from 5 to 10. You know, we've got to keep up with this 8% inflation rate. So I fully understand and can comprehend and get that why it might be 6, 7, 8%. But when you're seeing 130% increase, or you're seeing in some cases 500%, that's when the splaining happens. You know what I mean? That's when the splaining happens. And so I think the beauty of social media, the beauty of being able to get out there and spread the word that, hey, this is wrong and it needs to be fixed. The power's in the people, right? It's we the people. And so I think that the most important thing to do is let's start this conversation, right? Let's talk about property taxes and what's going wrong, because the whole idea is that we all live here, we all work here, we do business here. We want to make it affordable for everyone. And so 130% increase on property values isn't going to make it affordable for anyone.
Final question. Unless Yantis, you got anything?
No, go ahead, Joe.
You mentioned that there's corruption. You going to name names?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I made sure.
Name names. Where's the corruption? I want to know what corruption is.
I believe that we have some city officials that are very corrupt. I'll just put it that way.
When you say city officials, I mean elected officials or city staff?
City staff in general and one elected official, yes.
So you're concerned. We know you have a beef with the mayor.
Absolutely.
And city staff. What is the corruption amount to? Like, what's the problem?
There's a lot of problems, but I mean, I just have anecdotally 4 scenarios. I believe that Cosa DC robbed me of $20,000 at our mayor's.
And of course,
order.
Cosa DC is the City of San Angelo Development Corporation. They had a business plan competition. You won it. I guess
We won. Absolutely.
And then what happened was they wanted you to disclose P&L information
Absolutely.
over 5 years. You said that was never revealed to me before I applied for it.
Not once.
So therefore, you're changing the rules on it, and then they basically denied. I guess 20 grand is a $20,000 prize. Right?
Absolutely. That's just one scenario. Let's not mention the food truck scenario and all the bogus that
And
goes
on the
into
food truck situation, since I've been around you so long, Tim, I can explain. There's when the food trucks became really popular, like I'm thinking like 2016, 2017, the city started looking at ways other cities, benchmarking other cities, how they regulate food trucks. And one of the cities they benchmarked was Austin, because Austin does everything right? And what emerged from that, I think, were regulatory killing things. You mentioned to start a food truck.
Brenda Gunter murdered the food truck industry.
I'm not going to blame Brenda Gunter alone. I'm going to blame the city staff, and no one stepped in to save the food trucks. But remember when you brought that 9-page application that you had to fill out to start a food truck? I remember that. That's ingrained in my head.
I think it's up to 13 pages now.
It's 13 pages. So by over-regulating the food truck world, we don't have that many food trucks.
And we're all forced to move into buildings because
Right.
it's almost impossible to do business the way it was. So when we talk about cutting the red tape, are we really cutting the red tape, or are we just adding reasons to spend more money here in the Concho Valley, here in the city of San Angelo, here in Tom Green County?
Right.
Are we making decisions that are good for our businesses, our business owners, or are we adding red tape like some of us promised to cut?
Well, I think, Tim, the next city election, I need to see your name on the ballot for mayor.
No way.
Well, thank you very much. We'll be right back after this.
We know you're looking for a truck. And of course, you're looking for a great deal. We've got the trucks and we've got the deals. Get a brand new 2023 Ford F-150 STX 4x4, just $475 per month. And right now, you can get $1,000 in free Ford accessories. And you can only find these at Jim Bass Ford, Houston Hart at Arden Road, or 24/7 at jimbassford.com.